All right, it is Monday after Thanksgiving. I don't know what day that makes it. It's December 2nd or something? I don't know. December 2nd. I got this stupid X1 courtesy vehicle. I'm just clearing the windows off here. So we gotta wait a little longer for the SUV to get the air conditioning fixed. So my wife has the car, and of course my TT never drives, so I can't take that. I should really get on that for the spring. But I got some topics today, so we'll go through a couple that were submitted. The first one that I'm going to do on the drive into work here is about someone had asked if they were a junior engineer at a small to mid-sized company, how can they approach like kind of going into big tech? Like, what does that look like? What are either recommendations or pathways for that? So I'll chat through that. Man, there's no heated there's nothing in this car, man. My phone has to be down here so I can see how the traffic is. It's gonna be a rough couple days. So just a reminder too, before I get into this topic, if you have stuff that you want me to go over, please just add it in the comments. If you want it to be anonymous, I do have an anonymous one coming up probably for the Wednesday drive, or maybe tomorrow morning for CrossFit. If you find me on social media, dev leader on any platform, just send me a message and then I'll keep it anonymous for you. Otherwise, just add it in the comments if it's like a generic thing that you just want some perspective on. So yeah, let's dive into it. So if you're a junior at a small to mid-sized company, it's really difficult to give like super, I don't know, specific advice on this, because I don't know the company that you're at, and this is going to be very different for everyone. And then the problem here is that, like, when I go to give generic advice, it might seem so generic that you're like, well, how the heck is that even useful for me? So what I want to try and do is spend the drive talking about a couple of different examples, and hopefully it's generic, but there might be some specifics that apply to you and you can kind of think through that. So the first thing that I want to say is depending on the company you're at, when it's a smaller company, depending how small, the call it like the life cycle, I don't know, of the company, the age of the company, kind of where it's at from a growth perspective, you might find that even as a junior software developer, you are doing tons of stuff. And that's actually really good. I know maybe for a lot of people, the idea of doing lots at work sucks. Like, hey, if I could do nothing at work and get paid, isn't that the dream? I think the answer to that's actually no. And I would say that if your goal in software development is to kind of find that, then like you're probably, I don't know, like it's not good for growth. It's not really good for being a better software developer. And I would say, like, why not just find something that you actually enjoy doing and spend the time doing that? So if you are at a smaller company and you're junior, it almost doesn't even matter what level you're at. When it's a smaller company, if it's pretty scrappy, you'll probably find that you're just doing lots of stuff. And that can actually be super, super helpful, in my opinion, for applying to different companies, regardless of big tech or some other company, because you basically are cramming tons of different experiences into a shorter amount of time. So like when I worked at a startup before Microsoft, like for context, right, I was at a startup, not my own, but I was at a startup for 8 years. And when I applied to Microsoft, I applied to Microsoft at a principal level, and got the job. So my point here is that, like, I had 8 years of experience at this one company in particular, and that was my first full-time job aside from my internships. So I had 2 years of work experience before that, but that was my first full-time job. So I started there as a junior software developer. But my point here is that, like, you gain so much experience when a startup is just like either going through hyper growth or just like experiencing growing pains of trying to survive, right? There's so much to do, and like seemingly no one to do it. Everything's always on fire. And I don't know, I think that, you can get unlucky. Someone's probably watching this being like, well, this is bull crap. I've seen startups that are total disasters. Yeah, like I'm not, I'm not saying that they're all going to be awesome. But I do think that there is a ton to learn about software development in general from being at small, scrappier companies. I feel like there's a point when you start to become, more mid-size. So like hundreds of employees. It could even be, like I would say probably somewhere around 100 and over, that scrappiness starts to die off. Now I'm not saying it's gone, and I'm not saying this is a rule, but like I would say it starts to die off. So when you're in a company that is pretty scrappy, just trying to survive, I think lots of experience. So number one, if we take this, if we make this assumption and we think about, okay, well, what are the pathways to going into big tech? And I should clarify, this is part of the question that was being asked. I'm not here trying to promote necessarily like, this is what you need to do, this is the path you must take, you've got to go into big tech. Like, I mean, go work wherever you'd like. That's not for me to say. I enjoy Microsoft, but I'm not going to sit here recording a video and say, everyone must work at Microsoft. It's not going to be a good fit for a lot of people. So I don't want to pretend like that is the case. But this person asked if I wanted to get into big tech and I'm currently a junior, what does that look like? So we can talk about the pathway of applying. So I think, again, if you're at a startup, it's scrappy, you're building up this experience. Like, I would say if you continue to be feeling like you're building up this experience, right? Where you're like, hey man, I'm learning about how to get continuous deployment working, continuous integration working. I'm learning about stuff for getting our infrastructure in the cloud. I'm learning about whatever. If you feel like every day you're like drinking from a fire hose, like learning stuff about how to get software up and running, how to scale it, how to do all sorts of things related to software development, that's probably a good spot to be in. I know people like feel like they want to find some imaginary shortcut to like a successful career. And I think, I'm not saying this necessarily for this person, I don't know them, but if the idea is like, hey, if I just get into big tech, my career is, I've kind of won at my career. Like, no, I think personally you win at your career by putting yourself in a place where you're constantly learning and growing. Like, if you're doing that, yeah, the pay is going to come, you're going to be able to get promoted and, kind of do things at a higher level for sure. But if you try to, shortcut it and you're not going through this learning process, you're going to find yourself in a spot where you're like, I don't really know how to be a good software developer, but I guess I get a paycheck. And then you might start asking yourself, well, how long is that going to last for if I don't actually know what I'm doing? So I would say, like, don't rush it, right? So back to this idea of how do we start to transition from a small to mid-sized company as a junior. If you're building up that experience, this is all awesome stuff that you can start slapping onto a resume, and you will have all sorts of different experiences that people like your peers that are around your level of experience in terms of time in the field, right? You'll have all sorts of different things that other people won't have, which is super cool. If we want to compare and contrast that to, so say someone's at a company and we can kind of, the window is down, that's weird. We don't have to necessarily focus on the size of the company. I want to talk about, like, I'm going to use the word scrappy a lot. If we talk about companies that are scrappy and we take someone with 2 years of experience at a really scrappy company that's always trying to like move fast, break things, learn, and keep going, versus someone who's at a company that's not so scrappy, things are kind of slow, kind of stagnant, but it feels kind of safe. The person who's at the scrappier company for the same amount of time is going to build up all sorts of different experiences that the other person likely will not. So I think it puts you at a great advantage to be at companies that are moving fast, failing early, iterating, and just like constantly go. It feels uncomfortable. And again, I realize there's going to be people listening to this that don't like this opinion, but like that's been my experience is, if you're moving fast, you're learning, right? So, because not everything's going to go well and you have to adapt. So you build up this experience. I recommend staying at the place you're at as long as you are like learning like crazy, right? It's a good spot to be in, especially if they're treating you well. If you're being treated well, you're being paid fairly, and you're getting this like crazy learning experience. It feels like every day is something new. Stay there, build it up. And now when you go to start thinking about applying to, say, big tech companies, your experience in applications, you'll have so many different things that you can call out that will stand out compared to other people. Let's take someone that's very junior, right? So if we're talking about they haven't worked, or let's take someone who's worked, say, for a year, right? Within a year at a company that's moving a little bit slower, you might have worked on, some features in a particular product area. So we would assume some amount of time for ramping up. You're junior, so they're not going to give you very large advanced features that require architecture redesign, stuff like that. But probably smaller features to start with. Maybe you'll start to work up to something a little bigger by the end of the year. But likely you worked in a product or service area, built a few things, fixed some bugs. The first year is likely not going to feel wild in terms of exposure to stuff, and that's fine, right? You got to kind of build up to it. So if this is maybe like the average experience, again, compared to someone who is doing all of these other things, you'll be able to say, like, I worked across different projects, different services, and different parts of the stack too, right? So maybe someone who's at a larger company where things are going slower, they never even had to go touch anything with the CI/CD system. Like, why would they? There's a whole team for that. Cool, I used it, but like, I don't know. I don't know how it works. But at a smaller company or a scrappier company where you're like, hey, like, we had to go build the CI/CD system. We didn't even have that. Like, you might be one of the people that got to go work on that and touch it. So I think it can put you at a huge advantage when applying compared to, say, the average person at the same level of experience. So this is another reason too, when I talk about people that are just trying to get into the industry, I talk with people that will say, hey, like, I'm just graduating college, or I'm finishing up my boot camp, like, refer me to Microsoft. And I mean, first of all, if you're a stranger, like, I'm not referring you, I don't know you. That's not me trying to be like elitist or gatekeep. It's just like, it's a really weird thing. It's against my morals to like refer someone if I don't even know them, because I'm putting my name behind that, and that just feels very wrong to me. So it's I only refer people if I've worked with them, because otherwise how can I vouch for them? But I'll have people that ask, and I'm thinking in my head, like again, I like working at Microsoft. I have a lot of people on my current team or my previous team where Microsoft is their first job outside of college or university. And that's awesome. Like, it's awesome, but it's actually not what I would recommend. And it's not what I would recommend because my experience is very different, and I actually like how my experience went. I liked going to a small company first. I feel like, from what I'm observing from some of the very junior people that I've worked with at Microsoft, compared to some of the junior people I worked with when I was at a very small company, the amount of exposure to different parts of software development is just wildly different. Now, don't get me wrong, at Microsoft or other big companies and stuff, there are juniors that are working on things that have, you're touching hundreds of thousands of machines across the planet. Like, it's pretty incredible. So someone at a very small company may not have that experience, but someone at a very small company is going to have, I would say, likely the opportunity to be touching many more things across the company, if that makes sense. So this is sort of one thing I want to call out is staying at a small company, as long as you're getting the learning experience, can be really good for building up that resume. Now, I'm trying to think about different aspects of this I want to call out. So, I've had a couple people message, and I mean, this is pretty common. People are saying like, hey, I'm applying, but I'm not getting into places. And for this person that reached out and they're asking about, junior going in, they want to get into big tech, like I would say, be ready to apply to a lot of different positions. Be ready to be rejected and be ignored, and not because you're not good. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. I would say just because of the sheer volume of people applying. Right? You have a company that's like Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Google, whatever. These are companies, like, they're household names. People know about them. So you're just going to have so many more people applying. So many more people. Not to mention they end up carrying like that, air quotes here, prestige of big tech. So the volume of applications is immense. So if you're like, okay, well, I'm ready to apply and there's like one role at Google I want to apply for, I'm going to go apply for it. I mean, like, okay, you take one chance and the likelihood already is low when you don't get it, even, the opportunity for an interview. And you go, oh, okay, I guess I can't get into big tech. Meanwhile, there's other people out there that are sending like, boatloads of job applications out. So I'm not saying that one of these ways is right or wrong. I'm just saying you're literally competing against people that are blasting out tons and tons of applications. So if you're not playing the same game, it's like you're at a disadvantage just by default. So that's what I'm trying to call out here. So when you're ready to go from that junior position and you want to go over to big tech, I would say just be ready for lots of applications. Another thing on the application part here is, like, if say you get your application, you're able to you're getting an interview because you were able to stand out. A reminder that a lot of the stuff you're doing in big tech versus a smaller company, like, you might have applied to that smaller company and your interview, I don't know, maybe your interview didn't fit like the stereotypical big tech interview. So a reminder that I want to put out there is, like, when I say a stereotypical big tech interview, if you're like, I don't even know what that means, then I would say just get on the internet and start reading about what that looks like, because it will probably catch you off guard. If you're already familiar with what I'm saying, then you understand, and I mean, still got to prepare. But stereotypical big tech interviews will be multiple rounds, like 3 to 5 interviews. They will either split up the interviews dedicated to these topics or merge them. But you will have coding rounds where you're writing code. It's kind of like LEET code style questions. So it's not, in my opinion, it's not really realistic scenarios, but it's my opinion. You'll have system design type questions. When you're more junior, you see these less, because the expectation that you're designing systems as a junior is likely a little bit lower, but you should still prepare for it. And then you'll have behavioral interview questions as well. So these will be like 3 to 5 interview rounds. So again, if you're hearing this and being like, oh, like that sounds crazy, I don't know how to do any of that, like, no worries, just make sure that you're practicing this stuff. I might as well promote my own stuff because you're watching this, and I might as well shout it out. But I do have, if you check the description of this video and the comment that's pinned, I have links to courses that I put out. I have tons of free content, so I don't mind, like, I don't mind saying that I sell stuff too. But I have a course with a friend of mine, Ryan Murphy, on Dome Train for behavioral interviews. So that part specifically, if you're interested in, hopefully that's helpful. Sorry, I got to check the map here. It's telling me to get off the highway, but the fast lane's moving, so I'm not doing that. Okay, so we talked about building up experience as a junior. right? If you're at a scrappy company and there's a lot of learning opportunity, talked about, you're going to need volume of applications. Hate to say it, right? But I think that's the reality right now. And then interview prep, because going to big tech versus the company that you're at, if it's smaller, potentially has a different interview format. So there's lots of information online about what big tech interviews look like. There's plenty of content creators that are sort of capitalizing on this market of people that are trying to interview for big tech in terms of like the questions that you'll get asked. So there's tons and tons of resources on this stuff. I'm just saying it so that you don't get caught off guard. When I went to go apply for my role at Microsoft, even as an engineering manager, I was practicing my LEET code questions so that I could interview properly, and my system design questions. So I still had to do it at the principal level for an engineering manager. After 8 years of being at a company and programming stuff every day, I was wildly underprepared when I was doing my first sets of interviews at other tech companies. So, huge eye-opener. And I think that I am a talented software developer. So it was just one of those things, like if you're not practicing that stuff, it's going to be a rude awakening. So, okay, what else can we look at? Let's take a different approach a little bit. If you're at a smaller company, right, and you're junior and you're not getting these opportunities to get this like rapid, fast-paced learning because it's very scrappy and you're getting to get all these different experiences. If that's not what it feels like where you're at, I'm not going to say like, hey, like get out of there, because especially if you like it or whatever, like that's totally fine, but you're going to want to find ways to build up unique experiences. So either you hang out there for longer and get more opportunity, or I would say like try to see if you can be doing extra stuff. And it doesn't have to be work related. I've made other videos about like what types of projects and stuff to focus on. I mean, there's a million different options here. But my point is, again, if we think about competition, if there's other people that are getting that experience at work, day to day, and you're not, it's not a matter of like, oh, that's unfair, like I'm not getting that chance. Like, I hate to say it, but like boo-hoo, right? They don't care. They're just going to be at an advantage. So I'm not saying that to be an asshole. I'm saying that because like it's the reality. So if you're not getting that experience at your job every day, I highly recommend that you find ways to go create it for yourself. And what I mean by that is not like, oh, go start a company, now you have to go get customers and stuff. I just mean like, say, let's make up a random example. You're at a company right now, you're building Android and iOS apps. And you're like, I want to get into big tech and I want to work on stuff that's like, I don't know, like web apps, APIs at scale, things like that. And this guy's really got to move over. You're killing me, dude. And this car doesn't help. If you're not getting that experience because you're building mobile apps at work, like, it's not that, like, this is, again, my opinion on this stuff is, like, I don't just hire people because they have exact experience, right? I look for more generic things, but I'm not every hiring manager. I'm not every HR person. I'm not the person that's scanning every resume and application. So if you're looking for better odds at this stuff, I would say go build that experience for yourself. If you're only building mobile apps at work and you want to go work in a service that's going to be, planet scale web application at a company, like if you're trying to go to Microsoft, for example, to do this in Office 365, I would say, hey, like go play around with building stuff in ASP.NET. Go play around with Azure. It's not that you would never get the job if you've never used ASP.NET or you're not familiar with Azure, but like it's only going to help. And even if it didn't help you actually land the job, it's only going to help if you're using it like on the job, because it's going to shorten your learning curve. So again, if you're at a company that's not creating these opportunities for you regularly, I think that you need to carve out some time to go create those opportunities for you to learn yourself. Oh, this car is brutal, my God. Not to mention the guy, the guy in the lane back there was driving like 15 miles an hour under the speed limit. I don't know what that is in kilometers anymore. I don't want to do the math. I'm Canadian. I can't even believe I said miles. Okay, so create experiences that you're not getting at work. I think that's key. I would say that this is applicable for anyone, right? It's like that's really generic advice, but I feel like I can't say it enough because I always end up hearing someone saying something about it being unfair, right? Like, I don't have time for that. I have these other obligations outside of work. I can't just be coding all the time. And it's just like, I get it, especially going from like when I was at a startup and I was single and I didn't have any responsibilities. Like, I could literally work all the time and not have to worry about anything else going on. And I basically almost did that. I literally we have 5 animals at home. I have a wife. There's other stuff going on. Like, I understand what it means to have other commitments. I don't have kids, so I don't understand what that's like, but I know it's a lot. My point is that, like, it's not about it being fair, because other people are building up that experience, and they're not going to say, oh, you know what, Johnny doesn't get that opportunity to go build up that experience. I should not. They don't, like, they just don't care, right? They're just going to keep trying to progress. So the point is, you need to try and find ways to prioritize this stuff if you're not getting the opportunity at work. Now, one more thing that I want to mention, because I'm getting closer to the office here, is, okay, you're not getting the opportunities at work. You're also saying, like, I don't feel like I have a lot of time outside of work. Okay, how can we talk about what you're doing at work to try and help you transition? Okay, so if you can talk with your manager, maybe you can do some extra focus work for a different team that's working on some different types of projects or something like that. There's different opportunities you could explore, and again, this isn't going to work everywhere. I can't give you specific advice, and overly generic really sucks. I get it. But this is something that you could try to have a conversation about. If there's some type of way that you could work on other things in addition to what you're doing, or maybe your manager would let you carve out some of your time, like 20% time, to go help with a different team, investigate different technologies, stuff like that. That could be really good. So I wanted to recommend that. And the final thing I'm going to touch on is, because I think it was actually asked in the question itself, was like about kind of like job hopping. And I just want to touch on this briefly. So if you're not familiar with the term, the idea with job hopping, especially when it comes to like software development tech companies and your levels, is that the idea is that if you were to be at, I'm just going to make up like very simple leveling scheme here. If you're at level 1, you're a brand new software developer at level 1, and so you're maybe, to get promoted, it's going to take you a year. Okay, so you start working at this company, and you know, within 6 months, again, I'm just making this up for an example, within 6 months you go to a different company, but they actually let you start at level 2. Okay, so you actually just leveled up in half the time that would have been expected. Now you're at this other company, and to go from level 2 to level 3 is probably, let's say it's 2 years now, and you stay there for a year, and then you're going to jump to another company, and they actually let you come on board at level 3. Because what you're able to do is, in the interview process, so through your application and your interview process, you're able to sort of demonstrate to them, hey, look, I can do things at that level that you're talking about. And what you end up doing is you're sort of shortcutting the amount of time it takes to go up in levels. And this does work. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like people don't do this. It absolutely does work. But, and there's always a but, it's kind of what I said earlier. Imagine repeating this process. It's going to get more and more difficult to do it because your applications and your interview, it's going to get harder and harder for the higher and higher levels. And if you're not actually spending the time doing this stuff at that level because you are constantly hopping, you may very well find that you get to a point where you are unable to perform at that expected level even though you got the job. So now instead of being a good, solid performer, you're at a higher level and underperforming. And now what? So again, I'm not here to say like no one does this or whatever, like it's going to end your career. Lots of people do it. If you look at the average tenure for people in tech companies, right, like there's evidence to show like this kind of thing does happen. So it's not a secret or anything like that. I forgot this thing doesn't have a backup camera. It doesn't have literally anything going on for it. I don't even know if it has sensors. And there's a car behind me. Like I'm gonna stop here. I thought it was still rolling. Oh my God. Almost had a heart attack. So people do this. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I just want to say that if you only focus on this, if you make your entire career out of how do I just job hop to the max, I would say you will probably reach a point where it's not helping you and it's working against you. But I do recommend to people, if you're like, I'm not progressing at my company and I think that I'm valued more, I would say absolutely go look somewhere else. Nothing wrong with that. You should be getting what you deserve and you should be getting paid for what you're worth. I think that's just fair. I don't know what you're worth. I hope lots. So for this person that's asking about job hopping in terms of progression, like, yep, it will work. You might even find that if maybe you're building up experience in your junior to mid-level, sorry, someone's messaging me. I don't want to read it. You might even find that once you kind of, and I'm not a fan of this concept, but if you were to get a job at big tech, so maybe you apply for a role that's actually under-leveled for where you think you're at, just to be able to get in. Now you have it on your resume. You can say, oh, look, I was at Amazon, I was at Microsoft or Facebook or Google, whatever. Now it's there. Right now you start this job hopping process. People can do that. Again, I'm just not a big fan of the job hopping thing when it's overdone, because I think that I see too many people that talk about this online. Like, I became a senior in like 2 seconds, and I'm like, okay, like, did you build any experience, or did you just happen to find? It's like, how do they do this? It's like, I became a senior so fast, and like, buy my course so you can see how to do it. And it's like, okay, you want to tell people you've been a software engineer for like a year and you're senior, and now you're going to teach everyone else how to do it? Like, that sounds a bit like scammy to me. Anyway, I'm trying to think if there's anything else on this I wanted to mention. And I think that might be mostly it. So it's definitely, if you're getting those experiences at the small company, a really good opportunity to build that up for your resume. Big tech is not sort of I don't think that people should look at that like the ultimate path for their career, because it's not for everyone. I know personally, I love the pace of small companies. I love things moving fast. Microsoft, as a huge company compared to where I was at, it's definitely slower, but the scale of impact is much greater. So these are different things to look at. These are things that you need to weigh out for yourself. These are things that may change for you over time too. So just a reminder, like, to not hyper focus on this stuff as like the ultimate end goal. It may change for you over time. So I hope that was helpful. Again, if you have any other thoughts, questions on this type of thing, comments work really well, or just find me on social media and send me a message and I'm happy to go over it. And I will see you all on the drive home. Thanks for being here. Take care.